This is China Business Cast, your guide to doing business in the wild, wild east. We're here to get detailed and get personal with experienced entrepreneurs making things happen in China. If you want to learn from on-the-ground accounts of how business actually gets done, this is the program for you. Hello and welcome to China Business Cast. I'm your host, JP. Since this episode is being published on Christmas Eve, I want to wish a Merry Christmas to all the listeners, wherever you are in the world. Hope you're enjoying a great holiday season. I'm all alone here in Shenzhen, so there's not much going on, but I have to say the Christmas tradition, at least in the commercial sense, is really picking up in China. You can hear a lot of Christmas music in the malls and the restaurants, and there are Christmas decorations everywhere, even in my building. Okay, getting back on topic. What do we have on the show today? Today we have Martin Li from Uber's Asia expansion team on the show, talking about how Uber is expanding in the Chinese market. Uber, which has the motto, everyone's private driver, allows users to summon a car at the touch of a button via its mobile app. In case you're thinking that's not such a big deal, you should know that earlier this year, Uber closed a $360 million round of funding, valuing the company at over $3.5 billion. Today, we're here to discuss how Uber is expanding into the massive Chinese market. Here we go. So I'm here in Shenzhen sitting down with Martin Li, a member of the international expansion team at Uber. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Thank you, JP.
Okay, so I have some very specific goals for today's interview. So first of all, we want to understand what Uber does and then how it's approaching the China market. And the second goal is to dig into some of the intricacies and difficulties of localizing a Silicon Valley startup in China, which is a very different environment. And then finally, we want to talk about some of the interesting ways Uber is gaining traction as a consumer tech product in China. So with that in mind, and before we jump into the nitty-gritty details, can you give us a brief background of your China story?
Sure. So I was actually born in China, and then I grew up in Hong Kong for a very early part of my life. And then I moved to the US, went to Boston University. I actually studied finance and international management. After college, I joined Merrill Lynch, and I worked in private equity in Hong Kong for about 3 years. And when Uber was expanding into Asia, one of my good friends from college asked me, "Hey, Uber is expanding into Asia. Are you interested in positions?" At first, I thought, what is Uber? And then I did some research. I visited US, I asked around and found out Uber is actually a very exciting company. And when I kind of looked at the potential of Uber and what it could be, I got even more excited. I met with the team, I saw the opportunity, and then there was an opening in the international expansion team where the job primarily is to enter into new cities and expand Uber in as many geographies as possible. I took the opportunity and was mainly focused in Asia based on my past experiences of investing and doing business in China.
Okay, cool. So what is Uber came up, and I think a lot of people do know what Uber is, but maybe we'll just clarify for those who aren't familiar. From my understanding, Uber is a mobile app that lets you summon a car at the tap of a button. How does Uber define itself?
I think that's kind of down to what it actually does, the functionality. What Uber is logistics meets lifestyle. So logistics is how something gets from A to B. How does a person get from A to B? How does anything get from A to B? And lifestyle, it is, do you want something nice? Do you want something on demand that gets to you within a few minutes? And that option, those two options combined, is just not that prevalent in the market right now.
Yeah, I know in Shenzhen here, all the Uber cars are Audi A6s. So when you say lifestyle, it's part of it is about the experience, right?
Yeah, very much so. It's about the experience, because when people think about a car picking you up, usually they think taxi. And it's hard for them to imagine anything different. Most people wouldn't rent a car for half day or a day. But what Uber brings is bringing that product, which is pretty out of reach for most people, and bringing it to people's everyday lives where they have an option to get a nicer ride within a short amount of time to anywhere they want. One of our mottos is actually everyone's private driver. So we're essentially bringing that experience to everyone. You don't have to put down a deposit. You don't have to sign long-term contracts. And you can get it at the touch of a button, all the private driver experiences.
It's fantastic. I've always wanted a private driver. I've always hated driving, so this is perfect. All right. So yeah, let's dig into some of the specifics here. So you're part of the international expansion team responsible for launching new cities. Can you give us a brief background of Uber's growth and international expansion plan, and talk a little bit more specifically about its expansion plan in China?
Sure. So as part of the international expansion team, we go into cities that are completely Uber free. So one of our main jobs is recruiting. When we recruit, we have a kind of a ethos at Uber, which is celebrating cities. So even though our product is very standardized, we actually hire very local people to run those cities. When we go into a city and hire people, they might know the city very well. They might understand the dynamics of the city very well, but they don't understand Uber very well and how Uber applies to that city. And my job as a launcher in the international expansion team is to make sure that they get the training they need in order to build a business in that city. Other than that, I also set up the initial operations of a city to get a product on the ground. Because when a product is on the ground, hiring becomes easier, promoting becomes easier, operations become easier.
Okay, so in China, Shanghai was launched first, and then I think Shenzhen was the second city, and you're looking at a couple more cities. Is there a general plan for China? Is it first-tier cities? How is Uber looking at the China market?
So China is obviously a very big market. And how we look at any market is there demand? Is there supply? Are we allowed to be in that city? And generally, if there's a nice car 5 minutes from you for a slight premium to a taxi, you would usually take it. So the demand side, we can always build. More importantly is supply. Can we build a sustainable business with the amount of cars on the road that we can use? So we only partner with licensed limo companies. And in some cities where limo companies just do not have a business, or licensed limo companies do not have a business, it's very hard for us to build a business. So we look for places where supply is less constrained. And secondly is regulatory environment. Generally speaking, what we do as a business doesn't exist on the regulatory landscape. Just because it's technology, it's relatively forward-thinking. They don't have laws to govern us. But what we do look for are clear set of rules for the car rental industry, what you can do, what you can't do. And if we can operate in a city under, generally legal grounds, then we go into that city. We also look at things, for example, before we came into China, we knew that people were signing up in China. People were opening their apps in China. We know people travel to China with the Uber app. So we also analyze a lot of data when we go into a city, before we go into a city.
Interesting. Let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty details, which I always love to get into. Shanghai was the first market that you launched. Can you talk about some of the biggest challenges you had to overcome?
The biggest challenges are always... every city we go into has different dynamics. Some are very geographically spread out. Some are very dense. Some are very populated. Some are not. Some with different income levels. Some with different social dynamics. So when we go into Shanghai, we kind of always, or I think most international markets in general, we always target expats first. That's because they've used Uber. They understand the concept, and what they look for is, Uber is in town, not what is Uber. So when we target expats in Shanghai, it was more communicating and educating that Uber is in Shanghai. When we kind of go a bit deeper into the market, it was more about education and how it works and converting people's thoughts. I have another option of transport. And some difficulties which exist in every city are, credit cards, trustworthiness. And these things can only be built over time. People sign up because they know you, because their friends know you, because their friends have tried it and enjoyed the product. We believe firmly in our product because it is a great product. It is Audi A6L with chargers, Wi-Fi, and water in the car. And there is a significant value proposition versus other options. And given that our product is, I think, pretty attractive, that's why we need local people to run those cities to really get into the social scene of that city and make it something that's part of people's everyday lives like we are in US.
Cool. So what you talked about mostly was on the demand side, right? It's kind of a two-sided market. What about the supply side? Are there any uniquely Chinese challenges of getting these Chinese limo companies to work with you?
I'll say it's uniquely city challenges. Different cities have different laws in China in regards to the car rental industry. So in US, we and many other cities, we operate in a kind of independent operator model, meaning if you own a Lincoln Town Car, you can start a limo company. But generally, in most international markets, it doesn't operate like that. It's one company that owns a lot of different cars. So on the supply side, in the beginning, we always work with people who believe in our model and are up to the standards of our quality. And I think on the supply side, it's always a bit more difficult because the chances of them hearing about us is a lot less. And it's a bit more fragmented. You can't just use different ways to sell the product itself, because all they want to do is make money. So we just need to show them what we've done and show them we've done it in a lot of places and we believe in our model. And generally people believe in our model because we don't take over limo companies' business. We complement them. They typically use us in their downtime. Over time, they figure out, wait, I can actually make more money on Uber. As well as, their cost is, their opportunity cost, I guess, is to leave the cars in the garages. I think across the world, you can imagine that car rental company utilization is relatively low.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about revenue here a little bit. What is the revenue proposition to these car rental company? Is it like a...
So we work on a commission model. So we take a very small cut out of every trip as kind of a service fee for being on our system.
Okay, so kind of like the App Store.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And this varies depending on city and country.
Okay. Okay, so since launching the Shanghai market when was it? It was a couple of months ago, right?
It was in end of July.
Okay. I heard that it's grown quite a bit since then. Probably not at liberty to say exactly the growth numbers, but maybe can you talk about some of the tactics that are working well to grow Uber in Shanghai?
So growing Uber in general, there's certain tactics we use. These tactics you might know are not buying out a lot of ads, and it's more about word of mouth and being part of a city. One thing that's definitely our biggest kind of word of mouth transmitter is our give 50, get 50, which is basically every person that signs up gets a promo code that allows their friend to get 50 RMB, and they get 50 RMB as well when the person takes a trip. And I believe that is one of the smartest ways, because you would believe your friend for this experience, and this is, and it incentivizes you to take the experience as well. And other ways we do it are relatively simple, but difficult to execute. The idea is basically be part of every event in that city. I'll say most events have a transportation pain point, or they just do not think about it. And what we offer is a value add service that hopefully adds a bit of coolness and also adds convenience to each event. And also we partner up with brands, restaurants, bars that kind of have the demographic that kind of would like to give us a try. For me, I don't think selling Uber is about selling how good Uber is. It's about giving you a reason to try it out. And we know the product. Next time it rains, you'll think about Uber.
Cool. Are there any uniquely Chinese challenges to growing users in China? And also, are there anything sort of like marketing-wise that worked especially well in China that you didn't expect?
So I guess the biggest hurdle to people signing up is always the credit card. And it's not because they don't have a credit card, it's because of the hurdle of not knowing what this company is and entering your credit card without having tried it.
But you guys are getting Alipay soon, is that?
It's coming. Timing is TBD, but coming very soon. So the credit card issue happens in every city. Amsterdam has a credit card usage rate of 30%. It's not high. So the fact that people don't have credit cards is not really an issue. The issue is that people need to trust something to sign up. And generally, people aren't as open to giving out credit card information in China than they are in, say, US. In US, everyone buys anything on credit cards. So that is a hurdle, and it's about explaining why we need credit card. It's not because we take your information. We don't even have your credit card information. It actually goes through a payment processor. So why we have it is for convenience, that you never need to pay cash, and it's the same in all 70 cities you go to right now. That is the convenience factor. So once you explain that to people and they trust you and they are willing to experience it and have a reason to experience it, then they'll take it. But that's also why classic advertising, a big Uber logo, tend to work not as well.
I see. Now, having launched in Shanghai and Shenzhen and having had this experience, is there anything you would have done differently in your initial launch?
I think actually it's an interesting question, because I think I brought a lot of things when we launched in Shanghai to Shenzhen, and it's very different.
Interesting. Can you talk about some specific examples?
So I think it's all about understanding the dynamics of a city. In Shanghai, expats tend to be very in the service industries, and they tend to like to have nicer options and don't mind paying extra for them. And Shenzhen is a bit different, because generally people are not in service. They're more manufacturing or industries associated with that. So generally they don't like to look nice or look as nice or have less reason to. So that's one thing that, you brought the exact marketing model from Shanghai down to Shenzhen. It does not work quite as well. But, understanding the dynamics of Shenzhen, what is the biggest kind of wealth focus in Shenzhen? It is technology. So the likes of, BYD, Tencent are all based here. And where do those people go? So those people are the actual people who have been taking Uber in Shenzhen. One is because it's technology focused. Second is that they probably have more disposable income to spend on these things. And, this is an opportunity for them to experience something new. So it's about understanding the dynamics of a city and what the people and the makeup of a city in Shenzhen, both demographic-wise and also geography-wise, is very different. We found that in Shanghai, most people take very short trips, which is classically what Uber is for. But in Shenzhen, a lot of people take it to their factories and whatnot, which is neither good or bad. It's just maybe in the future, we could look at a product for that. It just depends on every city.
That's pretty cool. Given where you are now, can you tell us a little bit more about what is next in terms of what you guys are focusing on?
To be honest, we are focusing on, one, building out existing cities, because we are still in a soft launch mode, where we're kind of testing a lot of different things associated with Uber, whether it's the app itself or products or kind of different ways to share. So I think a big focus for me, at least, is working on the existing cities and how we can leverage our product best adapt to the local market, because we are still relatively new in China. And that ranges from social media to marketing channels to supply to how we deal with tech issues in China. I think we still got a long way to go to be fully localized product-wise. And we can only do that through people using our product and through hiring great people. And also, I think another thing we're always focused on is expanding into new cities. We don't have a timeline nor the amount of cities we want to go in. Ideally, we want to be in every city. But it's about if we can make existing cities successful, which we've already seen to a certain extent in Shanghai, we can expand into a lot of cities very fast.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about for local marketing is if the Uber app generates some sort of image that auto posts to WeChat, right? Like WeChat is an insane social network right now. And it's a lot of the moments options, kind of like Facebook posts, are image driven. I think that would be something that's cool. That's my input for
and we're testing different ways to do that through different types of accounts, different types of messaging, different social media channels, and we're doing tests on those all the time. And not only for China, across Asia. So we would like to see kind of the effects of those, because in US, those are our biggest channels.
Oh, great. So the social channels in the US are your biggest channels. Cool. So I think that wraps it up pretty well in terms of how Uber is tackling the Chinese market. So with that, Martin, can you leave the audience with a final message?
I just want to say that we're looking to hire in many cities across China and also globally. If you, your friends, or you know someone who might be interested, please go on www.uber.com/jobs and look for the openings. And also, if you're interested in giving Uber a try in any of our 60-something cities, please feel free to download the Uber app, enter the code UberChina, and you'll be able to get one ride free. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin, for coming on the show. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of China Business Cast. Head over to chinabusinesscast.com and enter your email to get on the list. I'll announce guests before I interview them, and you'll get a chance to submit your question for the show. Till next time, thank you for listening.